Okay, welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about gut organism overgrowth and stress because stress has so much to do with what's going on in our bodies. We just always have to come back to that. So first question is, are you having sugar cravings, craving for carbohydrate, feeling fatigued or muscle pain, joint pain, gas and bloating? If so, you may be having changes in your gut biome or microbiome. There's little critters, there's little organisms that all of us have in our intestines, and actually everywhere in our body we have different populations. But in our gut, this is a community, a very diverse community, and each organism has a specific job. And so we want diversity of these organisms. The gut organisms help us digest our food. They help us with metabolism, with sugar. We're learning a lot about how organisms make, now we're using like injectables, GLP-1s. Our gut makes GLP-1s like Wegovy and Ozempic to help with metabolism. Gut microbiome also supports the immune system. We have a huge immune system in the gut. And the gut microbiome makes things that help protect against pathogens, organisms, viruses from invading our body. So really important. And of course, it makes nutrients for our body. These organisms frequently make B12, which we need for energy. The gut biome is unique to each person. We get it from birth when we are hopefully born from the mom's vaginal canal. We get a big whopping dose of organisms. And kids that are born by C-section don't get that benefit, but they acquire microorganisms throughout their daily life from things that they put into their mouth and from foods they eat. What we're learning is your gut microbiome can change, and it can change pretty quickly. When someone changes their diet for the good or for the bad, the population can change in about 3 days. And there's a variety of all kinds of organisms. Mostly we talk about bacteria, but we also have fungus and even parasites. We're supposed to have some parasites. We're learning that there are some that are very beneficial. We've always heard about the scary ones, like the tapeworms that take our nutrients, but we're learning there are some of these little guys that actually help us. I gotta stop and talk about fungus. When we hear the word fungus, we think there's different kinds. There's mold, mushrooms, and yeast. That's usually what I'm talking about, yeast, or very specifically candida. But sometimes you'll hear fungus, yeast, candida for all the same thing. And especially we are going to be talking about mold in our functional medicine community after so many people have had flooding in the western part of the state, unfortunately. We all need a little bit of yeast or candida. It promotes gut health. It helps with absorption of nutrients and aids in digestion. The problem is when we get out of balance, then we get overgrowth of organisms. We might see a coating on our tongue called thrush, or in folds of our skin, or even on previous surgical incisions. We might, or even between our toes, might see a red velvety overgrowth of yeast. So I've got to talk about stress and the gut because they are very related. The brain and the gut are so connected. Everything seems to start in the brain when we're talking about the gut. Frequently, I talk about our primitive or lizard brain. What we're learning more about is our lizard brain wants to know, am I safe or am I not safe? This is not our big thinking brain. This is our primitive brain. This is not what we think about. So your big thinking brain may think, oh, I'm safe. But your lizard brain, maybe from an illness in the past or an event in the past, does not know that you're safe. And we get some stuck thinking. When little lizard realizes that they're safe, that's the state that we want to be in. We want to be resting and digesting, that's the gut part, and reproducing, which means our hormones are okay. But we're learning there's so much more to it. It's also about feeling calm and healing and repairing when we're safe, and having a sense of community and belonging, and communicating with others. But communicate also means other parts of our body are talking and communicating, and our hormones are working and communicating. So we need to be in an area of safety. Okay, so that little lizard brain, you might see up here in the brain is a little lizard, and his green tail is the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is really the yellow part, goes to every organ in the body, but especially to the digestive tract. The vagus nerve tells the rest of the body to start digestion. So before we even eat, our brain has to be involved. It needs to know that we are safe, that we are resting and digesting. So that vagus nerve, actually, his little tail goes all the way down to communicate with our gut biome. And because of that, the community in our gut that can change based on the situation. So if we are stressed, we're going to get some organisms to grow and other ones to not grow. So I remember I said food can change the gut microbiome in about 3 days. The vagus nerve has been found to change the microorganisms even within a day or two, even quicker. So little lizard says, I'm not safe. So what's happening there? We get stool changes such as constipation usually, but sometimes diarrhea. Because brain says it's not time to digest, it doesn't produce as much digestive enzymes, and we end up with low digestive enzymes. Then we get undigested food that can ferment, and we get gas and bloating. And as I was just saying, we can get normal organisms that overgrow, but then we get too many of them. Yeast is one of those that we have a little bit of, but when we're stressed, little lizard thinks I'm not safe, that yeast, the candida, can overgrow. Okay, so it's all about balance and barriers when it comes to the gut. We've talked about balance of organisms, but barriers is keeping the undigested food and organisms in the intestines where they're supposed to be, and not a little bit lower down in the intestines where the immune system and the blood are. So we want to have barriers here. When we get alterations in balance and barriers, we get an unhealthy gut. Leaky gut is an example of that. Irritable bowel disease, which is the Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, or even IBS, which is the symptoms of irritable bowel. As we age, we have less digestive enzymes, so we get more imbalance and we get less barriers. Mold exposure definitely can cause some alterations here, really causes some gut issues. And as we talked about, stress. Imbalances can also come from processed foods, sugary foods, beverages with sugar and alcohol, things like surgery. That's a stress on our body, a big stress. Antibiotics can kill some of the good organisms and allow other organisms, especially yeast, to overgrow. So we get big shifts in organism there. Being sick frequently can cause some imbalances. I put antibiotics twice. And then acid reflux medications. Organism overgrowth, not just one thing. So low good bacteria and more bad bacteria, low digestive enzymes, leaky gut. So how do we diagnose overgrowth? We can look at the gut microbiome. We can do a stool test. Sometimes we do a breath test. But sometimes we just go on symptoms. Frequently, people come in with so many symptoms, we already know that something is out of balance. a lot of times we'll do treatment, and then if we're not getting where we need to be, we'll go back and do some of these tests that can be kind of expensive. Some of the symptoms that we may be looking for especially bacterial overgrowth is constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, nausea, loss of appetite, feeling full after a meal, anxiety and depression, bloating and gas, skin rashes and headaches. And then, so that's usually bacterial. Then we want to know about fungus. It's some of those same ones, but with this we especially see fatigue and inflammation, frequent infections, poor concentration, and allergies. Now, sometimes we can get, and sugar cravings with fungus. Sometimes it's not just one organism that's overgrown. We get both, and we get all of those symptoms. So when we talk about organism overgrowth, I'm just really starting to mean more bacteria and fungus. So how do we treat it? Now, this is not time for treatment. This is more just kind of an overview. I wish I had a magic wand and I could make it go away, but I don't. This is all my R's. So rebalancing the diet and the lifestyle. So this is not just making temporary changes, but continuing to move on to eating those foods that are not going to overfeed the bad organisms. Sometimes we have to reduce some organisms. We might need to kill some. We might need to use herbs or antibiotics. We need to replace the nutrients, and sometimes we have to replace digestive enzymes. We have to work on removing toxins. As I said, mold toxins can really affect the gut, so can heavy metals. We need to put back some of the good organisms with probiotics. We really need to work on repairing and healing the gut and the emotions. We talked a lot about how emotions and stress can affect the gut. And sometimes we just have to retreat. Sometimes people will treat once a year in January after they enjoy the holidays. I have lots of other videos that you can access if you want more information about some of the details. We have one on probiotic maize, like trying to figure out which probiotic is best for you. I have one on digestive enzymes, and then I have one on herbal treatments. You can find these in our educational platform. We also have them in our office hours recordings, and sometimes I'll put them in your portal. So we have lots of resources for you. Another resource that we have in these same areas is information about the vagus nerve, about breath work, yoga, and humming. And this is a handout, and it's got QR codes with links to other videos, not by me. Vagus nerve. I'm always talking about vagus nerve because, as I said, that's where digestion starts. We want to be in rest and digest. Things that you can do to get the brain involved before you eat is take a moment to have a deep breath, to think about gratitude or prayer. That tells the lizard brain we're safe. Hey, get ready for digestion. Not eating on the run while you're at work, slowing down and enjoying your meals, smelling and tasting your food also tells the vagus nerve it's time for rest and digest. Having meals with loved ones and community is a great way to get that vagus nerve involved. And chewing your food really well before you swallow it so that we don't end up with undigested food that causes discomfort and overgrowth of organisms. So hopefully that will give you a little bit of information about what you can do on your own.